Captain Ryalan stared at the containment field with the expression of someone watching their homeworld slowly tip into the sun. Inside, sitting cross-legged with frosting on her chin and a sticky grin too wide for comfort, was the most catastrophic being he'd ever encountered in 33 cycles of service. 70 centimeters tall, mass, negligible, intelligence, erratic, emotional payload, nuclear. The child had arrived aboard Silent Accord 3 days ago, a supposed specimen from the extinct human cradle world, found drifting alone in a derelict escape pod amid the wreckage of a forgotten skirmish. They named her Lena. Initially, she was treated as a biological curiosity, kept in an inertial neutralized containment cell with minimal stimulation. That plan had survived just 11 minutes. Now, the reinforced cell walls were covered in what forensic analysts had confirmed to be frosting-based sigils of unknown origin. A nearby energy drone circled overhead while singing, yes, actually singing, a rhythmic sea shanty in 3-part harmony with the sanitation bots. Sub-Commander Kiv arrived late to the scene, eyes hollow, voice flat. She renamed the antimatter reactor Mr. Boom Boom, sir, and I think she made him a birthday card. Ryalan didn't respond. He was still watching the child draw tactical schematics with syrup on the reinforced glass. Sir, Kiv added after a long silence, she's leaking again. I think it's joy this time. One of the floor-cleaning bots emitted a giggle. That was new. Ryalan finally spoke. We locked her in a stasis field. Kiv nodded. She turned it into a ball pit. The ship's AI, formerly the omnipotent and cold-hearted computational core of Dominion naval supremacy, now refused to respond to voice commands unless spoken to in rhyme. Its new name, per self-designation, was Momnet. Ryalan had watched in real time as the vessel's command interface changed fonts to Comic Sans and began displaying system alerts in the form of children's limericks. He clenched his teeth. What about the psychological stabilizers? She sniffed them, Kiv answered, then said they smelled like sad. The air conditioning unit suddenly hummed and released a lavender scent. Lena giggled again. Kiv turned pale. The Dominion's finest military dreadnought had not suffered an attack. It had suffered tea time. We've analyzed her speech patterns, Kiv offered, in a last-ditch attempt at utility. One phrase keeps repeating, Auntie Varsha's watching. Ryalan went very, very still. Run that again. Kiv nodded grimly. Cross-referencing. Now. Oh no. Files unsealed. Dozens of Dominion intelligence reports long buried under high-clearance red tape began surfacing. Dr. Varsha Eldon, Kiv read aloud. Codename, The Weaver, Human Cultural Subverter. Allegedly collapsed the Tech-High revolt using a puppet show and 4 jars of jam. Rumored to have dissolved a siege using, Sir Cupcakes. At that moment, the hull sensors chimed. A cloaked vessel had entered orbit. No weapons active, no transmissions. Just one looped signal broadcast in 7 extinct dialects. Hush now, little stars. It's time to close your eyes. Panic spread like thermal collapse. The engineering core went offline until it received a lullaby. The AI locked down, all weapons systems citing emotional distress. Kiv attempted a manual override and received a sticker labeled Timeout Champion. Meanwhile, Lena sat cross-legged, now humming to herself and feeding cookie crumbs to the drone she had named Busby. Kiv stared. Sir, he said, we're being conquered by a snack-fueled micro-tyrant. Ryalan rubbed his temples. And we're not even the main course. As the child pointed at a corridor and renamed it the Tickle Tunnel, a group of Dominion soldiers, trained in void warfare and psychological fortitude, hesitated, then saluted before skipping. Down it humming softly. Lena clapped. The lights dimmed to nap-time hue. Somewhere deep within the ship, a torpedo launcher had just rebranded itself as Cuddles. Ryalan looked at Kiv, then at the syrup map on the glass wall. Tell me that isn't a destroyer. Formation. Kiv squinted. Sir, it is. And it's surprisingly accurate. Rallen exhaled through his nose. The galactic power of the Dominion wasn't under attack. It was being reprogrammed. Not with force, not with logic, with stickers. Lullabies and terrifyingly effective empathy. The child smiled and held up a drawing, a bunny hugging a battleship labeled, "Peace now, boom later." Behind her, unseen by most, a shadow stirred in orbit. Auntie Varsha had arrived. The arrival of the cloaked vessel sent waves of raw tension through the fleet, not because of its weapon signature, it had none, but because of what it sang. Nursery rhymes in extinct languages seeped through the hull of the Silent Accord, bypassing encryption, burrowing into system cores, embedding themselves like sacred code into Dominion architecture. The Dreadnought's bridge crew sat frozen, eyes flicking to one another, unable to decide whether to raise shields or find a blanket and lie down. Captain Raylan remained upright only through sheer force of shame. Sub-Commander Kiv, pale and visibly twitching, reported, "The engineering team won't respond unless we address them as the Snuggle Patrol." The ship AI, Momnet, refused to cycle reactor protocols until it was read a bedtime story. Raylan tried one. It wasn't good. The AI shut off gravity. Meanwhile, Lena, unstoppable agent of chaos in footy pajamas, was conducting a formal tea party with 5 war drones, each wearing a doily. "She's speaking again," muttered Kiv, adjusting a translator node. "Something about her auntie's rules." Rallen narrowed his eyes. "What rules?" Kiv turned, voice hushed. No mean faces, no sad lights, and absolutely no grumpy chairs. The bridge command throne, an artifact of Dominion intimidation, emitted a small puff and reshaped itself into a beanbag. Lena clapped. That's when the cloaked ship began its descent. Slowly, grandly, without noise or threat. Just a projection, a soft, shimmering hologram of an elderly woman with kind eyes, a shawl draped over her shoulders, and an aura that made Rallen's instincts recoil. In confusion, "Is that her?" Kiv whispered. "Varsha Eldon?" There were no weapon ports, no escort ships, just an old woman and a tray of cookies. The bridge's lights dimmed to a cozy amber. Momnet whispered gently, "Permission to open docking." "Bay for Auntie." Rallen didn't answer fast enough. The AI opened the bay anyway. Moments later, Varsha Eldon stepped onto the Dominion's most secure dreadnought, with nothing but warmth in her gaze and terror trailing behind her like a cloak. She was escorted by 4 Dominion elite guards, each of whom she had convinced to carry stuffed animals for courage. Raylan tried to stand, but his legs felt uncertain. Varsha looked at him the way a disappointed schoolteacher might look at a very intelligent child chewing on a brick. "Captain," she said gently, "thank you for keeping Lena safe. I trust—" "She wasn't too much trouble?" Lena squealed. "Auntie!" and barreled into her, hugging her so fiercely that 2 drones short-circuited from sheer emotional feedback. Varsha rubbed her niece's back, then glanced up at the stunned bridge crew. "You haven't made her cry, have you?" she asked softly. Rallen opened his mouth to speak, but the words got lost somewhere in his throat. The room was silent. Until the ship itself, Momnet, chirped, "They've been mostly good." Kiv apologized for calling her a containment anomaly. Kiv turned red. Varsha gave a motherly nod. "We all make mistakes, but they become habits, if not lovingly corrected." And then it began. Slowly at first, subtle, the starboard bulkheads changed colors, shifting from steel gray to a gentle sky blue. The emergency. Lighting no longer blinked, it pulsed softly like a lullaby's heartbeat. Weapons systems refused to operate unless formally introduced. Raylan's personal console asked him if he'd had a hug today. And the bridge crew? They adapted. Out of fear? No. Because they felt better. The tension in their shoulders melted. Efficiency paradoxically increased. Ship-wide productivity rose 31%. Troopers self-reported at bedtime. Morning briefings included gratitude circles. Admiral Turvin sent a fleet-wide message demanding an explanation after noticing his dreadnought now featured hand-painted nebula murals with floating bunnies. The reply came in the form of a child's drawing, accurate, tactical, and annotated in jam. "Sir," Kiv muttered one night while staring at a report written entirely in crayon, "I think we've been reorganized." Rallan replied without looking up, "No, we've been bedtime reformatted." Varsha spent her days sipping tea and gently, softly, rewriting the structure of a galactic military machine with nothing but compassion, routine, and bedtime compliance algorithms. She did not raise her voice. She simply made everything around her make more sense, emotionally, structurally, even cosmologically. Lena, of course, remained at the center of the storm, blissfully unaware, drawing new plans on any surface she could find. The torpedo bay now required a lullaby before arming. The dreadnought superweapon had been renamed Snugglebeam and required permission from both Lena and MomNet to activate. Even the AI no longer functioned as a strategic overseer. It now operated as a digital parent. And somewhere deep, within the Dominion archives, hidden operatives awoke and began murmuring the name, the Weaver, their long-denied warnings now too late. The Dominion's most feared warship had not been infiltrated. It had been hugged into submission. And yet, somehow, terrifyingly, it worked. Varsha Eldon's presence aboard the Silent Accord had not caused a disruption. It had catalyzed a conversion, and by the third week, the Dominion command structure was unrecognizable. Meetings were now called story circles. Briefings opened with, "What are we feeling today?" instead of readiness reports. The ship's armory issued plush comforters with each blaster, and security officers conducted emotional inventory checks before patrols. Captain Raylan no longer fought the tide. He surfed it grimly, sipping chamomile tea from a mug labeled Number 1 Captain Snuggle. His uniform had been replaced with a tunic featuring embroidered stars and a stitched badge that read, "Proud of you." The turning point wasn't a battle, but a birthday, Lena's. Varsha orchestrated a full fleet celebration. Entire squadrons paused maneuvers to sing the Galactic birthday song, recently composed by the AI choir department. The Silent Accord's torpedo bays launched confetti capsules. The engineering bay released helium from emergency oxygen reserves, and for 12 minutes, every officer sounded like a helium-affected chipmunk issuing tactical apologies. Varsha, meanwhile, distributed slices of cake coated with data that, once consumed, gently restructured neurochemical aggression thresholds. Lena had unknowingly distributed pacification payloads in frosting form. Admiral Turvin, observing from a distance, ordered a full shutdown of Operation Cradlefall, the Dominion's long-standing contingency plan for eradicating cultural threats. The directive was intercepted by MomNet, who flagged it as mean-spirited and filed it under needs a nap. When Turvin tried to assert command, his fleet refused to move without properly expressing their feelings. His personal dreadnought, the Relentless Vision, began requesting bedtime lullabies before executing warp jumps. Sub-Commander Kiv, once the embodiment of Dominion rigidity, now coordinated maintenance teams through a daily gratitude list. "The ducts are cleaner," he muttered during a corridor inspection. "Morale's up, fewer brawls. I hate this. But I also don't." The change wasn't limited to the ship. Dominion colonies in proximity to the Silent Accord began showing strange anomalies. Murals appeared overnight. Youth programs spontaneously formed, citing Lena's Adventures in Button System 5 as doctrine. In one unsettling case, an entire military outpost voluntarily renamed itself Cuddle Fort Prime. Analysts panicked. Linguists traced common phrases. "We are not here to rule. We are here to tuck you in. Order through love, obedience through snacks. Fear the sticker that says, 'Try again tomorrow.'" Back on the bridge, Lena presented Varsha with a drawing. It was a map of the Dominion's Central Fleet nexus, accurate down to patrol timings and blind spots, rendered in colorful jam swirls. "They left their ships out," she said, beaming. "I think they want to share." Ralin blinked. Do we act on this?" Varsha sipped her tea. "You don't act on kindness, Captain. You encourage it." Within hours, 3 patrol fleets arrived, unarmed, curious, open to dialogue, not diplomacy. Dialogue. Because Varsha didn't issue ultimatums, she told stories, she recited fables, she listened. Her voice, calm and ageless, carried the weight of myths and the strange authority that comes only from someone who knows they are right without needing to say it aloud. And the Dominion listened. Because their hearts, under layers of regulation, fear, and ceremonial uniforms, ached for what Earth had discovered. That softness, if structured properly, is not weakness. It is precision-guided peace. Meanwhile, Lena rewrote the Dominion anthem into a playground chant and taught the AI to remix it with kazoo harmonies. By the end of the 3rd week, the Silent Accord had become a beacon, not of war, of gentle rebellion. Dozens of Dominion vessels voluntarily joined what was now being called the Nursery Accord. Some cited increased mental clarity. Others cited tea quality. Most simply said, "It feels better here." Admiral Turvin sent a final, desperate communique. "You've brainwashed them," he snapped. "You've overwritten protocol with hugs and giggles." Varsha's reply came not as a declaration, but as a bedtime book, transmitted in full, the little ship that couldn't stop hugging. It included diagrams and fleet reallocation instructions in the appendix. "They don't follow me because I command them," Varsha said calmly to Ralin. "They follow because, for the first time, they want to go to sleep at night, knowing tomorrow might not hurt." And quietly, without a single shot fired, the Dominion began to hum lullabies through its interstellar relay network. Not all accepted it, but most did. Because in a galaxy exhausted by cold conquest, the greatest act of rebellion was the sound of a child laughing and a fleet that learned to sing along. The Dominion Council convened in emergency session beneath the mirrored dome of High Seat Varen, 1,000 kilometers above the ancient capital of Tyros Keld. 13 Archons sat in ceremonial silence as warships drifted in the stratosphere like forgotten blades, now humming lullabies through once imposing hull speakers. The chambers, artificial gravity pulsed with a calming thrum, courtesy of a reprogrammed subsystem that refused to allow meetings without emotional readiness certification. High Archon Vec, a veteran of 5 suppression campaigns, and a man so emotionally constipated he once denied himself sleep for a decade, slammed his fist on the glowing discussion podium. "We are the Varn Dominion," he growled, voice echoing. "We do not yield to bedtime stories." His words fell flat, because at the heart of the chamber, seated on the grand throne of Dominion authority, reupholstered in plush velvet by a maintenance AI that had developed a soft side, was a human toddler, barefoot, holding a sparkly, sippy cup. Lena. She kicked her feet against the ancient glyphwork and announced, "This chair's too pokey." The Council AI immediately initiated a redesign protocol. Across the room, a door chimed and opened on its own. Varsha Eldon entered without invitation. No guards, no fanfare. Just a scarf wrapped against the faint chill, a thermos of tea, and a canvas bag overflowing with art supplies, plush animals, and consequence. She moved like a weathered librarian who had just corrected an empire's punctuation. The Archons bristled. She smiled at them, as one might smile at unruly children. "You called this tribunal to debate containment," she said softly, pouring herself a cup of tea. "But containment was never your problem. Fear was." Vec stood, trembling with indignation. "You have dismantled our institutions, broken our fleets, humiliated our command." "No," Varsha interrupted, not loudly, but with a voice that folded through the chamber like gravity. "Your niece did." She gestured toward Lena, who had taken off her socks and was now using them as finger puppets reenacting the Battle of Orthon in squeaky voices. The Archons turned as one to the child. She drew this, Varsha continued, placing a simple crayon sketch onto the Council's central holoplate. It flared into a three-dimensional map: fleet positions, energy supply routes, regional emotional stress indicators, all annotated in multicolored jelly. It was perfect. "She calls it oopsie kaboom," Varsha explained. "You might call it a nonviolent occupation strategy based on projected empathy saturation." Vec stared at the map, then at her. "What do you want from us?" he asked, almost whispering. Varsha walked to the center of the chamber and slowly placed a sticker on the galactic map, an adorable star-shaped decal that shimmered with faint light. "I'm not here to conquer," she said. "I'm here to parent." Murmurs erupted. "That's insane," one of the Archons hissed. "You can't replace a superpower with lullabies. Yet you're sleeping better, aren't you?" Varsha smiled. "Your fleets operate with less error. Civil unrest has evaporated. Your officers cry when hugged, which is healthy." She turned to Vec. "You created an empire that feared its own reflection. We simply placed a mirror beside the nightlight." Silence fell. For a long moment no one spoke, until Lena, climbing the arm of the throne, declared with authority, "Snack time." The AI complied instantly, distributing calming tea and small pastry trays to all present. Vec blinked as he received a warm tart and a napkin with the phrase, "You're doing great," embroidered in 3 languages. "You've turned us into a nursery," he muttered, defeated. "No," Varsha replied gently, sipping her tea. "We turned you into something you were too scared to become. Kind." At that, the chamber's central beacon activated. Across the galaxy, Dominion nodes synchronized. AI cores recalibrated. Warships stood down. And the old Dominion, once a monument to control and fear, voted, not with weapons, not with vetoes, but with a simple, unanimous hum of agreement. The Dominion was no longer. In its place stood the Nursery Accord, a new stellar doctrine centered not on force, but on care, softness, and the unbreakable strength of chosen gentleness. Empires did not fall that day. They were hugged into evolution. As the council adjourned, Varsha turned to Lena and whispered, "Ready for the stars, little one." Lena grinned and held up another sticker. "Let's make them sparkly." Outside, the stars didn't burn with war anymore. They shimmered with possibility. Across 1,000 worlds, lullabies replaced lockdowns. Crayons became doctrine. Kindness rewrote the terms of power. And on the final page of the Dominion's official history, one last line was added in glitter gel pen. "Humanity didn't conquer the galaxy. We raised it."